Welcome to the Get Real with King Arthur show. And today we're going to talk about dancing with language. And so we'll see where we can go on that. But language is a lot more than what I thought it was in the 6th grade. I looked at language, as sentences anyway, as a pile of words. In fact, I was pretty impertinent. I said to my English teacher, "I don't understand this junk." Well, how impertinent can you be to say that to an English teacher? So she made me write out 100 times, "English grammar is not junk." Well, I deserved to be put down a notch or two. But it could have been a teaching moment. I really didn't understand it. And so here I end up teaching sentence structure and loving it. And there was a long way in between. Well, let's think about building a house. When you're to build a house, some people would bring the cement and the lumber and glass and nails and glue and shingles and that's it. Well, there's a much more to building a house than gathering materials. There's a dance, if you please, a structure, a purpose, a scene. And so to get acquainted with all these things is to unwrap, to dance with language, not just to blunder into it, whatnot, but to dance. So, for one thing, we talked about left brain and right brain. Left brain is what we use for details, for sentences. Right brain is what we use for text. So, when we come to look at a sentence, we look at certain elements in the sentence which play with each other. Burke has 5. A couple of them are act, agency, scene. I'm not sure I agree with all this 5 exactly, but they interplay with each other. So the actor is influenced by his role and influenced by the scene in which he writes. And that's true also when we go from a sentence and cross from left brain to right brain, where we go into persuasion or change. Now, a sentence is left brain, it's dealing with details, and its purpose is declarative, a statement about the nature of something. Now, you say, well, I know some sentences which are loaded with whatever, persuasion. Aha, confusion. That is, it could be a sentence, but it's really text. And so you need to be clear on what a sentence is about, and then what a right brain, a change text is. Now, let me give you some examples. I read some poetry. I won't tell you which ones. And I don't see any purpose in them except declarative, description. Well, I like description, but that's not a poem. A poem has a structure which is to change, to give some insight, interpretive meaning to life, not just a detailed thing. So let's be clear here in dancing. I said, language is a dance. For example, you have 5 elements dancing around. The act is influenced by the scene. For example, if you're talking about, let's talk about something Burke talks about. He talks about the American Constitution, which he says is a structure. It is a purpose is a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. That's its purpose. Now, it's composed of little bits and pieces. The Supreme Court is composed of 9 justices, all right? Yes. But what is the role in the larger aspect of the justices in the Constitution? One thing that Burke says, talks quite a bit about the Constitution in Grammar of Motives, and he said the American Constitution, let's look at it. It is behind, let's talk about the scene of it. The scene of it is a Western cultural Christian or Jewish Christian scene. So when the Constitution says the purpose is to allow everyone the pursuit of happiness, really? That could be extremely dangerous. What is happiness? And that is an adequate motive. So just, I'm going to try to be happy. And he said, behind the scene, behind the Constitution is a universal Constitution. God and the structure of the universe, you see. And so when we look at the Constitution, we have to take into account the purpose and see if it's adequate or not. And he finds things like logical positivism inadequate as far as purpose. I look at poetry, some of it, I don't see any purpose in it. I don't see any structure in it. And so it could be good declarative statements about the springtime flowers or something, but lacks that purposeful as far as meaning goes. And to analyze poetry or anything, the Constitution, for example, we need to look at various elements, like, let's look at the political scene. Donald Trump is a strong leader. I think right now we have a little trouble separating the act from the agency, himself as a leader apart from his role as president. At least it's confusing to some people to see in which he's acting. So what it opens up is clarifying your thinking, clarifying your interpretation of both of language at the declarative level, left brain, with the persuasive level, right brain text. And so we see all these pieces being put together. There's movement and dance, if you please. Now, we know in quantum theory, all those particles are going into little holes. You can't predict which hole they're going into, but you can percentage-wise. And then we get down to more minute things like strings vibrating. And so we see that energy, that the world is not just some blank, solid thing at all, but filled with energy and change. Well, if I sound a little bit tangled, I'm in the middle of tangling and thinking, but I know that a sentence is left brain and should be declarative, not persuasive, please. That's right brain, and that's text. And text usually could be one sentence or even a word, but it's usually a longer grouping of things. So a sentence is subject and predicate. Text is problem and resolution. Well, so we have all these elements even in a sentence that influence each other. So, for example, our Constitution says that the purpose is for people to be able to pursue happiness. Well, we need to know that the scene is Western Christian or Judeo-Christian setting. So, for clarity of thinking, we need to see the language as a dance and see the interaction of various parts, not only of the sentence, but of text. Now, there's some principles as we go along. I mean, it can get complex, I know, but there's some principles. For example, it makes a great deal of meaning, the setting of, if your child says, I want to go sleep over at my friend's house, what is the real setting there? Mm-hmm. There's a whole, it depends on who the people are, what they know about them. So, the whole thing is dependent on different units. And say, take the act. What's your child like? Is responsible? How old is the child? So all these they're moving parts of sentences and the moving part of text are a dance, and each part influences the other part. Well, I hope I've just driven you mad with confusion in terms, but I will try to straighten you out more later. But remember that purpose for sentences is declarative, not persuasive, and that a larger unit, like supposedly a poem or a novel or a constitution, is composed of much a purpose of change or persuasion. Have I left you all utterly confusion? Well, just remember that language is much more than a pile of words, and that it is a fascinating dance. And you need to know all the movements of the dance and the patterns and whatnot. So, if I've left you confused, hold on, I'll straighten you out later.